Dan.
Hey, how you doing?
Do you remember my name? It's Father Les. That's right. We're here to make your super awesome usher training video today. First off, I want to say thank you so much, Dan, and to all of you who are ushering or considering ushering at our church. Dan is your chief usher, your head usher. Look official, Dan.
Hi. Thank you.
So really the job of usher is in some ways simple, but the simple jobs are often the most important. We find that the most valuable thing about a church is the way we can provide consistent kindness across the board in all of our ministries. And the usher in some ways embodies that more than anybody else, right? You're there to make sure someone has a program and knows what they can do. You're there to make sure that someone can find the bathroom. You're there to make sure that someone elderly might be able to use a wheelchair. You're there to make sure that people with children know that there's nursery care available, all that stuff, right? So, but I really sort of encourage you just to wear that mantle. Like your first job is just to be kind and available. So, and what we find is, once again, like both for the people who are continuing members and for new people, that's the thing that really creates this place that allows them to encounter God unlike anything else. So, thank you for volunteering for this, in some ways simple, but extremely important job. And we're going to get into a bit of the nitty gritty. Dan's going to take more of a lead on that. But I first off want to just say, as your priest, thank you, because this is a ministry that is invaluable and I can't do it. And I'm so glad that you are and that God has called you to it.
I'm happy to be here and happy to take on this ministry and take the lead with the ushers, and I think it's a great way to welcome people into our church. We're kind of the first people that they see when they come in, and to me it's just helping them out and get comfortable with the church.
So the first thing to do is the first thing to do. So first you got to get here, and that usually requires transportation. How early do we want people to get here when they're ushering for the 10:30 service? For
the ushering of the 10:30 service, I want everybody to be here by 10 o'clock.
Okay, good. That way you can make sure everything's set and ready before worship starts. Would it be good for them to take like a look in terms of making sure that everything's sort of orderly? Sometimes things get moved around. Usually it's your priest's fault. So it's great that you have my back for that kind of thing. Then you want to know the difference between the different kind of bulletins, right? So why don't you show them the 10:30 bulletin? The 10:30 bulletin is actually very inclusive. It has just most of the things that people say. It's even got pictures of the two different hymnals we use. So if you have someone who's new, you might want to make a special point to walk them through a couple things. If they have questions about that. So you don't get confused, the 8 o'clock bulletin looks a lot like the insert there. It also has the readings for the day in the 8 o'clock. If there's still 8 o'clocks out, feel free to move them away, toss them in the recycling bucket, whatever, to make it more clear if you want to. But we always use those for the 8 o'clock service. Most of you who are watching this video are probably watching for the 10:30, but that's just as an FYI to all of you. All right, so what's next?
So as we get the bulletins, make sure everything's in order, and then prepare to greet people. You have your orders or your bulletins. Be prepared to greet people and give them their bulletins. Make sure everybody has a bulletin that wants one. And then as the service would start, then we got to move into checking, getting a head count for the children in the back and locking the door.
Ooh, so you probably want to make sure you know where the counting sheet is. So the counting sheet, we're right here in the front. There's this little drawer. Open it up right here. there is a counting sheet. So it's got some things listed. If there's one out with the 8 o'clock number on it, use that one. If not, that's fine. Do make sure that once it's filled out, it makes its way into the offering plate, and hopefully at the top of the offering plate, because I write those down. And you might not realize this, but the vestry actually gets pretty significant reports about attendance and stuff like that happens on the back end, so it's really helpful. Along with that, one thing I always want to tell people is, and it even says here on here, count everyone because everyone counts. Sometimes ushers will forget to count, say, the person who's working in the nursery. That person counts. Count the person who's doing children's chapel, as well as the kids in children's chapel, right? Count even the clergy should make it on this list. So, we only say that because we can't have consistency in numbers if one person isn't counting the five people who work here and somebody else isn't. So we just try to make sure, count everybody on campus. Count everyone because everyone counts. Then there's also another option that we do once the service begins. We haven't gotten completely to that yet, but once the service begins, we encourage, not require, but encourage the ushers to lock the side door where most people come in.
Okay, so when we're going to go lock the door, I would recommend that you wait 5 to 10 minutes after the service has already started for any people who are running late, and they can have access still to the building, and without having to go all the way around to the front door to get in. And then when you have the time that you're going to lock the door, it's up here on top of the security system, the key.
It's an Allen wrench, so calling it a key is a little bit of a push.
Well, yeah.
But we keep one up there just for funsies. When it's unlocked, yes, exactly. It's like that where it'll be pushed in. The way to remember it is, if it's unlocked, it's pushed in as if you were walking out. It's just holding it for you. And then you sit the Allen and it's important to do both doors, because we'll keep both doors unlocked before, and so that when you start, you lock them both. At the end of well, I guess they were locked, so you wouldn't have to lock them again. Sorry. Okay. Any other points on door locking?
Just make sure that it's locked, and then make sure the key gets put back. We have had lost keys, so please make sure the key gets put back up on top of the security system.
Awesome. Let's go to worship.
So after you have the door locked, and then we got to get a count. You get a count of the folks over in the children's area, including the people that are tending to the children, the adults, and then come in here. And how we should usually do it is each usher will take one side or the other, and you get a count on your side, and then one of you have got to account for anybody up in the choir area and anybody up in the worship
on the altar.
Area.
Yeah.
So we account for Father Les and everybody running the service.
Great. And so they put that down on the sheet.
Yep.
And then get ready to put it in the plates when that time comes.
Yep.
Great. What's next?
After that, then you basically wait until the time when we are going to bring up the elements, and you would go and get the
Elements being the bread and wine, and that's in the corner on, it's pretty visible when you walk in.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So
And so that's the offertory, right?
offertory.
So right after, there's the peace and then the announcements. Then I usually say something like, walk in love as Christ has loved us and gave himself for us. And that's your cue to grab the elements and bring them forward. Does it have to be the ushers that grab the elements and bring them forward?
No, it does not.
Oh my gosh, blow my mind. We should have rehearsed this beforehand. So who else might you invite to bring forward the elements?
Can invite anybody. My recommendation is usually try to involve any of the children, and maybe a family, to get them involved and have them bring it up. My one recommendation is probably not someone who's new, just to put them on the spot, but I would encourage to have somebody that's a regular here and would feel comfortable getting up in front of people and bringing up the offertory.
Speaking of that, handoff is actually a really useful tool for an usher, right? It's your job to make sure the jobs get done, but that doesn't mean it's always your job to do all the jobs, right? If somebody comes and is like, I can't find the bathroom, it might be more welcoming for you to grab someone helpful, say, hey, Dotsy, can you walk this person to the bathroom? That can be a more welcoming thing so you can keep in your space. Also, if there's a newcomer, it's often good to introduce someone in the pew so they can sort of be around somebody if they seem... Usually I find if a newcomer is enthusiastic, it's good to give them more stuff, and if they're not, it's not. So you said probably not someone who's new, unless they're like, oh, this is great, I want to be in the middle of everything, in which case that's the best thing to do, is be like, go ahead and take that up there. But you're right, 9 times out of 10, it's probably better not to put a newcomer on the spot. And so one of the other things you should be aware of, especially for before the service, we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but especially before the service, you're the ushers. There are also vestry greeters in every service. So those vestry people there's their job to try to make sure that people are accounted for, or newcomers go where they go. You sort of work together with them. And I want to tell you a secret that they told me in seminary. Whenever you have this is true for you, Dan, and this is true for you. Whenever you have this is what they taught me in seminary. They said, Les, whenever you have a job that you don't want to do, get the vestry to do it for you. I don't really follow that personally, but I would encourage you to do that, right? Like in terms of walking people to the nurse. And another thing that's important to let people know, if there's a kid, children are always welcome in worship, regardless of the age, but we do have nursery care available. It's kind of back in the back. A new family isn't going to be able to find it unless you send someone to send them to it. Children's chapel begins in the parish hall. So those are all things that are useful really before worship, to be able to get people in their spots. And once worship begins, you come in here, do the count, and get going before the offertory, which we just talked about in terms of bringing forth the bread and wine. So after you give the bread and wine, the acolytes give you something. What is this?
It's the offer plate.
Yes. And there'll usually be 2 that they give, one to each usher, right?
Yep.
And then what do you do with that plate once you get it?
So once we get that, then we will walk over to the transept, depending on which side you are supporting, and follow along and offer this out to each pew that has people in it. And they can put their offer in it. If they are not doing it, usually you get they'll just kind of give you a little wave. Or if they just don't want to give anything, that's fine. But then once you get through the transept, then you come up the center, and it'll pass down each row, and you work your way to the back, and then come back to the middle and wait for the organist to stop and start the
doxology.
doxology.
The praise God from whom all blessings flow. I love the acoustics in this place.
And you will bring it forward and present it to the acolyte who will then bring it up to the altar.
Perfect. I have a question, and this is funny. I should know the answer to this, but I'm always doing other things. So I've been in churches where you pass the plate down to the end of the row, and then they pass it back in the same end. I've been in churches where you pass it back to the end of the row, and then they pass it to the next row, and they pass it back. I've also been in churches where they have 2 ushers per row, which is a lot of manpower. So how does that generally work here? When you pass it down, it gets to the other side, what happens?
So generally for us, it goes down to the end and just comes back.
And just comes back to you. Okay, great.
Depending on the number of people, sometimes it does get passed to the back one, but most of the time it's sent down the row and back.
So it works by boomerang effect, right? But if you have, that's also useful to know, because if you have someone from a different church that's not used to those norms, they might go ahead and pass it to the next row down. That's fine. And you start with the sides and you move your way back. and then you get ready to bring forward the offering. That's the offering of money can be brought up by the ushers. That's great. In fact, usually that's the norm. If you wanted to invite somebody else to do it, you certainly could, but it usually is the norm that we have the ushers bring it to the acolyte. If for some reason there's no acolyte, don't be afraid to go all the way to the altar to bring it to the priest. This is a sacred space, but you're sacred people, so you can be up here. Sometimes it really freaks people out to go into the what's called the chancel. But once again, you're baptized, you belong here. So.
The other thing I'd like to say is, as we're bringing the offer up, if you do have anybody else do it besides the usher, instruct them that once they give the offerings to the acolyte, that then they can just exit to either way, wherever they're seating, and get out of the way, so then you can then take the plate once the exchange
that's good.
from them happens.
There's one more thing that I wanted to ask about, and that is kneeling cushions. So once you give the plate to the acolyte who takes it up, I've noticed that a lot of times the ushers sit and wait until the song is over or whatever, then they bow and then they move the cushions. That's okay, but I would encourage you to go ahead and move the cushions before you bow, just because I feel like sometimes it gets forgotten because it goes later. There's no reason not to. Once the plate is up, nobody is going back and forth from here. So once again, once you've passed the plate forward, feel free to go ahead and move the cushions. You're not required to bow, but a lot of times people like to bow towards the altar as a sign of piety whenever they cross. So that's just something to keep in mind. Communion flow.
Communion flow.
This is what most people consider to be the most confusing part of being an usher, and the worst part of it is sometimes people in the congregation think they know what's supposed to happen and tell you how it's supposed to, and do what they think is right rather than listen to you. You have my permission to gracefully but enthusiastically point people according to the directions we are going to give you in this video. That's right. You've wondered what the right way to do communion is? You're going to find it out right now. So Dan, how do we do communion flow?
So as an usher, you usually come up and be waiting, and what we do is we have the choir or anybody up in the choir area come down first. So they kind of start the flow.
And they lead themselves, right?
They lead themselves.
And they start off going far corner to the middle in terms of the fill. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how they do it.
And you guys go to each transept. You start in the back and you move forward.
Correct.
Okay. And what we want people to do. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And as they release, they walk around the back to come up the center.
There you go. That's good.
So we're releasing them from the back to front, and then they get up and come around and come to the center, and then go to their side. So, and if they're over from on this side, they would generally go to that side, and the same thing over here, following behind where the choir goes.
And here's a point that is a great point of confusion for a lot of people. If they're on this side, that which is called the epistle side, or the right side if you're looking at the altar, stage left if you're an actor, whatever you want to call it, that side, they start from. We want them to fill from the wall to the middle. Everyone on the other side, known as the gospel side, or left as you're facing the altar, or stage right if you're an actor, we want them to fill from the middle to the wall. That might seem a little confusing to people at first, because sometimes people like to do wall to middle anyway. But there's two advantages of doing it that way. One, sometimes we have one bread, sometimes we have two breads. If there's one, we don't have to change the flow depending on whether we have one bread or two bread if we do it that way, because this bread person just goes around in a circle the whole time. The other advantage is it actually cuts down on people running into each other. So once again, you fill from back to front on the transepts first. People go through and from the back of the church and file in two lines. If they're on that side, center to left. If they're on that side, far right to center. Everyone always feels towards the left, but whether you start in the middle or start in the end. And then after that, you guys go back to the back of the center rows, right? Yep. And you release them from the back to the front.
As the folks that are up here work their way out, we start releasing them to try and not get too much of a bottleneck in the middle, but to keep it flowing, try to get the timing right. So as they're kind of walking away, we're having people fill in behind them.
Perfect. Also, ushers usually receive communion last, yep. Right? And if you see anybody who seems like they might have difficulty getting up, please ask them, say, would you like me to have them bring communion to you in your seat? That's something that's very normal. After you receive communion, you just tell me or whoever has the bread that there's somebody to go to. We'll try to spot them on our own, but it's always good to have you guys as a backup. And then we'll go out and bring them communion and the wine. So but I find that making the offer often makes it a lot easier. Some people have difficulty asking. Also, if people ask if they have to stand or kneel for communion, it does not matter. We put the kneelers out because a lot of people like to kneel, but some people can't kneel effectively. It is just as acceptable to stand as it is to kneel to receive communion. One is a posture of receiving, and the other is a posture of praise. Both of them work for the Great Thanksgiving. So if people ask about that, feel free. Also, if anyone ever asks you, what are people doing with their hands to receive communion? Once again, it doesn't matter. You put out your hand, we'll give you communion. Usually people put their right over their left, and you try to make an altar with your hands to receive it. This doesn't matter as much for you guys, but if people ask, if people want to dip, we usually ask them to dip themselves. We will dip it for them if they want, but we usually ask them to dip for themselves for no other reason than it's easier than putting a wet piece of wafer on your tongue, which we'll do, but and some of the Roman Catholic background people like that, and that's fine too. But for the most part, we encourage people to take the bread, dip for themselves. They're going to dip. If you're going to drink, we encourage people to actually grab onto the chalice and help guide it. So once again, these are sacred things, but we are all sacred people.
So Les, let me ask you this.
Oh, okay, great.
If someone doesn't want to take the communion, and some people won't want to come up, or they can take a blessing. Mm-hmm. How do you want that to be? Do they just cross over?
Yeah, great question. So if people would prefer not to receive communion, that's absolutely fine. They can remain in their seat if they want to, or if they come forward, they put their hands across their chest. We do, if you ever get a question, we do use real wine in the Episcopal Church. You take all of the benefits of communion are in each thing. So you can so if there's someone who has an allergic to alcohol or is on medication where it doesn't work, they can absolutely take the bread and not take the wine. They can either go back after taking the bread, or they can once again put their hands over for a prayer. And also just fun fact, like those things being the whole of Jesus is in each piece. You don't need both. During the Middle Ages, there was even a time when they wouldn't give any of the lay people wine anyway. And when people are in a position where they're more infirm and we bring them communion and they're at a place where they can't swallow, all we do is drop a drop of wine on their lip. So once again, it's all the communion you get. You don't have to get both pieces. You're welcome to get both pieces, but you don't have to get both pieces in order to get the benefits of sharing communion with us in that way. So the next thing is after communion's over, right? So first you take communion. We didn't tell you to put the kneelers back, but you probably want to do that after you take communion. Then you guys head to the back. Now, there's one thing I want to add that I haven't even told you yet, Dan. and that is we're working on trying to make sure that we've got clear recycling containers in the back. So when people are leaving, it might be good to either sort of make sure that people are finding their way. Once the first person finds it, the rest of them will probably follow. Also offer to take people's bulletins or whatever, so that we can make sure that they get recycled. We use a lot of paper here because we want to be welcoming, but we also love the earth. So that's true. And then afterwards, you got one more job once everybody else is clear.
We have
or a couple more jobs.
Yeah, once we go back, and then you do the final closure song, dismissal song. Open up the doors, prop the doors open so people can flow out. And then once everybody's getting out, then it comes to cleanup of the pew area, and making sure that any bulletins left laying around, or any of the books
To be put back in place.
I generally like, which I think is a good order, to kind of make them look
big. Less big, middle, I guess, and then small. Oh, that's cute. I like that.
So if they're in order, to me, they look nice and neat. So make sure in all the areas. And then in the middle area, on the pews, we usually have extras of these hymnals and the prayer
Book of Common
books.
Book of Common Prayer.
Book of Common Prayer. And just make sure that those are evenly spaced in the pews. And typically, once again, order, I kind of like putting the bigger one with the Book of Common Prayer on top because it's smaller, so it just looks
prettier.
nice and neater.
That's great. That's great. Things I wouldn't even thought of. That's awesome.
And you do that and pick up all areas. So however you guys are working together. And then make sure that sometimes you'll have the seat cushions that people would like to use. To me, I like to put them back in one area so they're all kind of stacked up. That way people know where they're at when they come in next time. And then it just kind of also gets them out of the way for people coming in for the next worship.
One more quick thing. Also, someone might hand you a completed visitor card. If that's true, just give it to either the clergy or the vestry, and we'll take care of it. We do an elaborate follow-up for visitors, so based on that, so it's always good to encourage people to fill that out. But I think at that point, you lock the doors.
You make sure that the front door is locked, so you kind of got to make sure everybody's getting out. We didn't really talk about this, but if you're here talking to people, I don't know if we want to just lock a door.
Don't ever be afraid to lock a door.
Okay.
Because the doors have a tendency to go unlocked sometimes, and if people need someone to lock it behind them, and I'm here, I'll lock it behind them. If not, they can walk around, and it's fine. There is both things on the side of the door to lock, and on the right side as you face towards outside, and the twisty thing. Also, just to be aware, all of the other doors that people don't usually use, the side doors, you really need to pull them closed. So if you see one that seems a little ajar, please do try to make sure it closes behind you. We already talked about locking the side doors earlier, but if you hadn't done that earlier, you should do that before you leave.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate you volunteering and being part of this outreach ministry for us, and it's very important for us, and we appreciate your time, and thank you.
See you Sunday!